In today's industrial landscape, maintenance teams face significant challenges. Valuable knowledge is often lost when experienced engineers retire or leave, and the shortage of skilled labor only exacerbates the issue. Also, without easy ways to capture and retain information, knowledge sharing across your organization becomes a major obstacle to innovation. Introducing Maintenance Copilot Senseye, the groundbreaking functionality which is set to revolutionize predictive maintenance. Built into the Senseye Predictive Maintenance application, it is a virtual maintenance assistant powered by Generative AI with the knowledge of all your assets and is designed to help you make better informed, data-driven decisions. Maintenance Copilot Senseye answers all of your questions in an easy-to-understand, natural language, providing prescriptive insights into the required actions you need to take. The tool captures and retains the knowledge of your experienced workers, providing a single source of truth while making it easily accessible for future use and enabling collaboration across your organization. It also translates into any language so you can bring colleagues from around the world into the loop. Learn more about how Maintenance Copilot Senseye can help accelerate digital transformation across your organization today.
So, hello, and welcome to this very special live event we're hosting today. We're here to talk about some really exciting functionality just released in our product, Senseye Predictive Maintenance. It's Maintenance Copilot Senseye, and it's powered by Gen AI. So I'm really lucky to be joined today by my colleague Dan Reed.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Who's the head of product for Senseye Predictive Maintenance. So the man behind all of this is actually grandiose. So
very much so.
Yeah, very much so. You've got a great team behind you as well. But
Yes,
we're going to go into that today. But before we start, just a bit, I guess, housekeeping. We do have a Q&A function. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to put them into the chat and we will share that and we'll answer some questions at the end. We'll save some time at the end for that. But I guess, Dan, as we get started, there'll be people on here maybe don't know Senseye Predictive Maintenance at great length. So maybe you could just start by giving us a bit of an overview. So.
Yeah, of course. So Senseye is a cloud-based predictive maintenance application. And what makes us quite unique is we really focus on scale. So we support any vertical, and we're operating in automotive and heavy industry all the way to food and bev and pharmaceuticals. And we can also support any machinery and any sensing. So it doesn't just have to be rotating machinery, and it doesn't have to be sensors from a particular vendor. And in fact, many of our customers find that they have lots of data available for Senseye to consume without additional sensing. So our focus is really on monitoring all of the assets within a plant, rather than just a few high criticality. And ideally, all of the plants an organisation has around the globe, given a very sort of holistic view of predictive maintenance across the organisation.
And of course, we're talking about Gen AI today, I guess more specifically, but actually, if we go to the history of Senseye right back to the beginning, the platform was actually built on AI, to start with, wasn't it?
Yes, that's it, right. So even, Senseye started about 10 years ago now. And right from the start, we were using artificial intelligence. And one of our aims was that our users shouldn't have to be experts in AI or data science. They should just send us data and we do the rest. So we have a range of automated machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms, which will analyze the data we receive. So in the past, that's been very much numeric data. So we deal a lot with time series. So we receive measurements from the assets, whether that's current or pressure, things like this. And then we try to identify patterns of interest which might be indicative of a failure happening in future. So that's what we've focused on. With the advent of language models, and ChatGPT being one of the more popular ones, it's become much easier to process textual information and get value from that, which was actually quite hard in the past. And Senseye actually has quite a lot of textual information available. So we have maintenance records from our customers, we have feedback from customers, and just general notes as well. So that's really, pushing forward, we're going to be making much more use of that textual information.
I guess if we start, the story of Copilot isn't just today and what we're talking about today, but it's actually a journey We spoke about this earlier, actually. So 6 months ago, we did an initial announcement. You might have seen it. The audience might have seen and heard about it. But the work's obviously been going on for a lot longer than that. So maybe you could start with like the evolution of this fantastic functionality.
Yeah, so research started as soon as really, the announcements were made, and obviously there's lots of hype around this technology, lots and lots of hype. And for Senseye, we're really focused on trying to solve customer problems. So we're not interested in building technology just for technology's sake or because it's hyped up and things like that. So we really wanted to connect, the technology to a customer problem. And in speaking to customers, we was something which kept coming up was around knowledge. So they've got two major problems. Their sort of reliability engineers and maintenance engineers are aging, and through retirement, they're losing their knowledge. And this knowledge is, it's very specific about the assets of that organization, how they break commonly, how they fix them. And once it's lost from that organization, it's just gone. So they're very keen to retain that knowledge. And that's also paired with a lack of sort of mechanical engineering skills in the market. And so they're having to hire people with maybe less skills than what they've enjoyed in the past. And these sort of two combinations of factors result in organizations wanting to firstly capture and retain their knowledge, but then they really want it surfaced when it's most needed. And Senseye, we sit in quite a privileged position because we have so much knowledge about these assets. We know when they fail. We have a lot of text information, like I mentioned. And Senseye is there to highlight when assets need help. So it's a perfect time to make use of that knowledge and surface it. So it's a perfect combination of technology.
And I guess what you're saying as well, Dan, is we're talking not just within, I'd say, organisational boundaries within one plant. It's actually how can we share that information across a whole enterprise?
Yes, very much so. So a lot of our customers do, well, everyone really, right, has silos of knowledge. So that might be in a team or it might be in a site, but it's particularly bad across different languages as well, so language barriers. And Copilot does help to resolve that. So we're able to pull in knowledge all around the enterprise, even if it's written in different languages to the user, and make use of it and surface it when it's needed most. Yeah.
And I guess, you can see behind us, or the audience will see behind us, we've got the application on screen. We're going to go through a few different functionalities and use cases. So maybe you could just take us through some of those.
Yeah, so the first one we wanted to talk through was something actually we released some time ago, and it's our first sort of push into generative AI. So hopefully you're seeing on the screen a case in the Senseye application, and here we're looking at a motor. And at the top, you can see a concise description of what we've detected. So in this case, it's an upward level shift on peak vibration and peak to peak vibration. And under that, you can see the graphs of that data and what we've detected. And in the past, that's where cases would have stopped. So we would have relied on the user's experience to look at this graph, understand what it means, and what would the next steps be. But as I mentioned, that push towards capturing knowledge and helping maybe lesser skilled maintainers, we really wanted to take that a step forward. So I think it's about 2 months ago now, we released the prescriptive guidance in cases. So underneath the evidence, we now provide a list of possible explanations. And this is making use of the knowledge we have around this asset and the historic cases that's been raised. And on different similar assets within the organisation, as I was mentioning, so it will go across the organisation to find similar cases. And then for each of them similar cases it finds, it sucks in all the knowledge we have around it, right? So that could be maintenance records, it could be feedback, anything really, and then we infer from that what the possible explanations, what the possible root causes of this problem we're seeing are. And in this case, we've got potential bearing wear because of the upward step in high frequency vibration levels. We have possible misalignment because of the motor of the connected components, again, because of the increased vibration levels. And then it's also saying it potentially could be the normal behavior in that the operation of the asset could have changed and it could have a different normal operating range. And for the two at the top, which are more sort of failure related, we have the historic cases that we've used to infer that root cause. And for each, we can actually click on them, and you'll see the case come in at the side. And we can look at that historic information to understand what happened in the past, how like it is, how similar it is to the current situation, and how it was solved in the past, most crucially. So we have all of this information ready to go, and we're pulling it from all around the organisation and making our cases much more actionable for maintainers.
And I mean, we talked about this challenge of knowledge here, and you can see quite clearly how this makes it so much quicker to understand and take actions on this. But when we talk about what I mentioned before about sharing across the enterprise and sharing with people in different languages, even, I think that's really important as well, so people around the world can interpret what you're interpreting.
Yeah, very much so. And this one we're serving up, obviously it translates for different languages, but we're serving this up front with every case. So there's, you don't have to ask for it. It's just every case gets this prescriptive guidance. But there's always going to be follow-on questions. So someone might be looking at this case and want to have more guidance, say. And there's a certain set of questions we can't predict, obviously, right? And much more ad hoc that come up. So that's why actually this morning, in fact, we've released the interactive version of our Copilot, which we can now demo. So if we go back to the application, in the bottom right-hand side, you'll see a Copilot icon. And if you click that, and we'll zoom in a little bit to help with the text, the Copilot loads, and this Copilot has knowledge about the case we're looking at, about the asset in question, all of the relevant history, and a lot of knowledge just about general maintenance and assets in general. And we can really ask questions and get to the next level of guidance if we need it. So we'll start off with how should I pinpoint the root cause of this case? So really trying to help make it even more actionable and understand how that user should take the next step in solving it. And the Copilot will then make use of its knowledge to answer this question. So it's suggested, again, it's quite quick, so we zoom past. So if we just scroll back up again, it's suggesting we review the evidence charts, consider the possible explanations which have been raised, review similar cases, and then inspect the asset and consult maintenance records. So it's given you really like step-by-step for how we take this case forward, which is great, especially for junior maintainers that might be using it. We could then take another step on from this. So we could actually say, how would I go about inspecting a bearing for wear? And the pressure's on for typing.
We're doing it with no hands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so how would I check for signs of bearing wear? So again, it's using here much more general knowledge about maintenance, right? So it's checking for vibration levels, temperature monitoring, lubrication analysis, checking for shaft misalignment, and it's looking at historic data comparison. So it's really giving you a step-by-step for how you'd go exploring this. And if we go a bit more general again, we could say ask what are the common causes for misalignment. And again, it's pulling on the information it has around mechanical engineering and maintenance to answer this and guide the user as to how to solve this problem. And in this case, it knows we're talking about a motor, and it would talk through the common causes for misalignment, like thermal expansion, operation conditions, and maintenance issues. So that's the Copilot, and we're hoping that it really provides that next level of guidance for users and making our cases much more actionable and be able to crucially solve problems far quicker than they have been able to in this past.
Actually, a little bit of a follow-on question to that. It's obviously shown some fantastic insights there, but I guess people might presume that you need lots and lots of data to sort of get, to get this vast amount of knowledge. Is that the case, or? No,
not at all actually. So I've been quite surprised with how well it does a little bit of information, and maintenance records are notoriously bad for detail, right? You might only get a sentence or two describing what was done, but that's fine. That's all we need really. Obviously more is better, but certainly a sentence or two around maintenance records roughly saying what roughly has gone on. And then the Copilot is able to use its sort of more general knowledge to fill in the details that we need. So this information certainly does not need lots of information. It's very minimal.
And I guess, of course, on the, I mean, with anything like this, there's always a question about security, you know, and data's involved and, you know, insights being shared. Can you sort of give a bit more insight into the sort of security measures you've sort of put in place around this?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the concern here is, especially when you're using public chatbots, you're providing information to the public chatbot, and then it's sort of sucked up by the hyperscalers and OpenAI, say, and then used to train future models. Now, in our case, we actually have a private language model. So the information which we provide doesn't get back to OpenAI, say, for model training at all. So it stays within our language model. And furthermore, we don't have any training going on. So there's no concern around, say, one of our customers providing knowledge and then that knowledge being used by another one of our customers. So you can think of each conversation you have with a Copilot as essentially a sandbox. For, you know, it has that conversation, then it forgets about it, in terms of, you know, the language model at least. So yeah, very secure.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yes.
And of course, I think one thing we haven't covered as well, you know, when we're talking about knowledge sharing and sharing across the enterprise, is, you know, because it's got such powerful translation capabilities, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about, you know, the scope for that.
Yeah, certainly. So I mentioned before that it will even make use of sort of maintenance records in other languages. So you're pulling in information from all around the organisation, if it's a global one, and making that available. But furthermore, all of this Copilot functionality will be available in the user's natural language. And if we actually jump back to the application, we can quickly ask for it to be translated to, say, Japanese. Not that I can verify it's accurate, but yeah. But yes, it can easily translate these messages into other languages, and yeah, it really breaks down them barriers, especially with language.
Yeah. No, exactly. So yeah, if someone could verify that, please let us know. But to do that in seconds alone is very, very powerful stuff.
Yes,
absolutely.
Indeed.
And so we were saying, so the Copilot functionality is, I mean, we're launching the Maintenance Copilot Senseye today, and we talked about, you know, the initial launch, you know, 6 months ago. But in that time, customers have started using that you know, sort of first phase of functionality, let's say. So do you have any sort of feedback from customers that we could sort of talk about today? Yeah,
certainly. So the case functionality we showed early on has actually been released probably for about 2 months now, and the feedback has been really positive from customers. And we do have one use case I can quickly talk through. We were monitoring oil levels on a hydraulic system in a steel mill, and through our normal analysis, we identified that them oil levels were dropping, and we forecasted that it would cause problems if that continued. So a case was raised, and as part of a prescriptive guidance, the top possible cause that was raised was a leak. And when our customer inspected the system, they actually found a broken weld in the piping systems where it was leaking. And through finding that quickly and fixing it, they were actually able to avoid 24 hours of downtime, which is really significant. So it's been really well received, and it's just that additional level of guidance that people are benefiting from.
Yeah, and it's sort of what we discussed earlier as well. It's around what we want this to come across is it's about business outcomes. This is what it's solving, like real outcomes. It's a great, cool bit of functionality which you can play around with, but it's really contributes to it. You know, 24 hours of downtime is just one fantastic example. I'm sure there'll be many more.
Yes, we're very excited to see actually how customers make use of this interactive Copilot in particular. So with it being released today, we'll be talking to customers regularly, trying to identify what they want to do with it, and obviously we'll tune the development going forward to suit the customer needs.
Yeah, and actually, I guess that comes towards the final questions. We'll leave some time for questions from the audience as well, because I know you and your team, you know, always talking to customers, getting feedback on the product, and it's, you know, it's how the product's evolved, and you know, the roadmap is sort of driven, you know, a lot by customer feedback. So
yeah, certainly.
In terms of the next sort of iteration of, you know, the Copilot functionality, maybe you could a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so it will be largely driven by customers, but certainly we've got two broad areas we want to focus on. So the first is increasing the depth of knowledge that the Copilot has. So we recently introduced the Knowledge tab, which is an area where users can upload files to assets or asset groups. And what we're imagining this used for is to upload manuals for the machine, upload notes maybe from the maintainers, or images as well, as you can see behind us. And really that's for knowledge sharing between users at the moment. But going forward, we want to make that available to Copilot as well. So when it provides prescriptive guidance, or you're having a conversation with it, it can pull on this information, this knowledge that has been uploaded. And it should make the details that are provided much more specific to the actual use case. And then further to that, we really want to broaden out the scope of the Copilot. So at the moment, what we've shown today is very much focused on cases, which is really the main output of Senseye. We're trying to solve problems before they happen. But there's another set of questions which are more exploratory in nature. So you might be looking at an asset and you want to have a summary, say, of the last 12 months of maintenance records. And the Copilot could go off, gather them records and summarize it for you. Or you could be looking at a fleet of similar assets, and you want to understand which one is most abnormal and potential reasons why. So we want to be able to support these sort of questions, more exploratory questions, like I say, going forward as well.
And I guess from what you're describing there, Dan, as well, is it's sort of becoming like a central repository for sort of maintenance information. So you feed information in, and you can host information there and then actually learn from that information as well. Yeah,
that's right. So yeah, ideally getting all of the sort of the knowledge that an organization has into the Knowledge tab, but also we often connect to maintenance systems. So obviously that's a very rich source of information for a lot of our customers, and we can integrate with popular maintenance systems, bring them records into Senseye, and then obviously use that information going forward. So when there are cases raised, we can surface it, or when people are talking to the Copilot, we can make use of all of that history. So really, yeah, Senseye going forward, hopefully will be a source of knowledge within an organization. We can retain that and surface it when it's most needed.
Yeah, very well summarised this one.
There you go.
It's in the video. So yeah, so I think we've come to the end of our questions that I had written down. So I'm really keen to use the final sort of 5 minutes or so just to take a few questions from our audience. So just to start, and actually, because you mentioned integrations, then this might be an interesting one to start with. So it says, could you provide more details on how the Copilot integrates with different types of legacy systems, and what challenges have you faced in these integrations? Well, I guess it means customers faced.
Yeah, well, there's always challenges. No. So the most popular integrations we do are with maintenance systems, as well as historians. So obviously, the first thing you need to do is get data into Senseye. So that's self and time series data. So Siemens has a lot of products here which actually help getting data from a shop floor to the cloud. And then the other main integration, which relates more to the Copilot we're discussing today, is with maintenance systems. And there's a set of popular products which we've obviously integrated with in the past, but it is certainly a project with us and the customer to understand what data they want brought in, what sort of workflow they would like to implement, and then it's very much a collaboration. And that the typical workflow is that when we raise a case, a notification gets raised in the maintenance system, and when work is complete, that gets brought back into Senseye and contributes to our algorithms and also the knowledge.
Yeah, I guess the idea is we want to fit in within existing workflows. That's what.
Yes, yeah, very much so.
We know that customers have their own systems and their own processes. We want to fit in with that as much as we can.
Yeah, certainly.
And I've been pointed to another question off camera. So how will Copilot keep up with the latest AI tech?
Yeah, so yeah, it's a good question. So we have a research team who is always exploring the latest technology, and that's why we're releasing this right now. So they're exploring new technology as it becomes available, and essentially we'll assess, the technology as it comes up, compare it to customer needs, like I was mentioning earlier, and make sure that if it fits and solves a customer problem, and then we develop it into the application and make it available within Senseye. Yeah.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned about when sort of functionality is available, because someone's actually asked more about your product updates. So how frequently are updates rolled out to users? You're talking about, the future updates. How often does that happen?
Yeah, it's actually continuous in the case of Senseye. So our development practices are fairly modern, so changes are happening maybe 10 times a day on average, most of which are obviously not noticed and they're sort of under the covers. And then every so often we'll have sort of larger releases where we make features like this available, and they're always paired with obviously update notes and a user guide to explain the new functionality. So yes, it changes fairly rapidly, yeah, which is fun.
Well, actually, a question from me, and it's more about, could you imagine this kind of functionality? Maybe it's easy to say, when you first started Senseye, or you and co-founder started Senseye, did you imagine that it could do something it's doing today? Even I'm
still gobsmacked now, to be honest. Yeah, I'm constantly surprised with how quick things are moving. It's great to see.
And another off-camera question, is the Copilot learning from installation-specific history on site?
Yes, very much so. So it is very much learning about the individual asset. So we bring in the history from that asset, and also other assets which are similar across the organisation. So that might be from other sites, or maintained by different languages, and we're making use of that to inform the conversations as well as the prescriptive guidance. But like I mentioned, learning it learns as in it supports the functionality we've shown today. It doesn't learn into the future or share with other customers, importantly.
Yeah, important to emphasise again.
Yes.
But and again, what I'm interested in as well is it's so, the insights it produces are so actionable, and you gave a great example there for one of our customers, but how do you ensure that happens? Because there's also a danger it doesn't sometimes, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the case. What we're relying on here is the knowledge of the customer. So the more knowledge we have, the more actionable we can make the feedback. We're also reliant on the general knowledge it has around maintenance, which is very thorough. And language models, there will be bits where it might slip up, and as a result we've got sort of feedback, so you can obviously notify us if you in the application if something's not gone quite right, and we can explore and improve, which is the typical development process. It's iteration going forward. Yeah.
Exactly. And I guess looking at time, one final question. So does it give guidance based on manuals?
Yeah, so right now it doesn't, but part of our future plans is to make use of manuals. So users will be able to upload it to the knowledge tab, which we showed earlier, and then it will be able to pull information out of their manuals to provide guidance. So I think that's going to be really exciting when that becomes available, and that's probably early next year sometime.
And is that the cross-language?
That's cross-language as well, yep.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I think that's all of the questions we have for today. I mean, by all means, if you've got more questions, feel free. I mean, if you Google Senseye Predictive Maintenance, you can come through the website if you're interested in learning more about the Copilot and how it can help your business, or reach out to one of the team on LinkedIn. There's plenty of us are on there as well. But I guess for today, thank you again, Dan, for sharing your insights with us, and thank you everyone for joining us live. And afterwards, you'll see there'll be a video of this afterwards, so if you want to share, and also on the podcast too, the Trend Detection podcast. Well, I'll plug it in there before we finish.
Well done.
For today, thank you everyone, and see you on the next episode.
Thank you very much.